Picture this. You're a battle-hardened German soldier, convinced your enemies are weak, desperate, and on the brink of collapse. Then you step off a train in small-town Texas, and everything you've ever believed crumbles in an instant. What these Nazi prisoners witnessed in America didn't just end the war, it obliterated their entire worldview. The psychological destruction was so complete that thousands of fanatical SS officers became advocates for democracy. But here's what's truly mind-blowing. America accomplished this transformation without firing a single shot. You're about to discover the most successful mind control operation in history, and it happened by accident. May 13, 1943. Tunisia's blazing desert heat. 250,000 German and Italian soldiers, the elite Afrika Korps, surrender in what becomes the largest military capitulation since Stalingrad. These weren't ordinary conscripts. These were Rommel's desert foxes, hardened veterans who'd pushed the British Empire to its knees. Among the captured, Obergefreiter Friedrich Radke, Iron Cross recipient, wounded twice fighting for the fatherland. As he's loaded onto Allied transport ships, he scribbles in his hidden diary, "The Americans must be lying to us. No nation fighting on two fronts could possess such abundance." He had no idea he was about to witness something that would haunt him forever. But first, let me tell you, what these prisoners expected to find in America, Nazi propaganda had painted a picture of a nation in terminal decline. A mongrel democracy torn apart by racial conflict, crippled by Jewish manipulation, where desperate citizens fought over scraps while their military crumbled. German soldiers genuinely believed they'd find a country weaker than war-torn Germany. They were about to discover how catastrophically wrong they were. The first crack in their worldview came before they even reached America. The Liberty ship carrying 2,000 prisoners across the Atlantic wasn't some rusted cargo vessel. It was a technological marvel built in under 5 days at Kaiser shipyards. 5 days. German shipyards took months to build vessels half that size. But here's what really shattered their minds. The waste. Feldwebel Kurt Zimmermann watched in stunned silence as American sailors threw away more food daily than his entire company received in weekly rations. Half-eaten steaks tossed overboard, whole loaves of bread discarded because they were a day old, gallons of fresh milk poured into the ocean. "They wasted food like we rationed ammunition," he wrote to his family. Not to mock us, but because abundance meant nothing to them. Their supply was literally limitless. During the 2-week crossing, prisoners discovered that their transport vessel was just one of 2,110 identical Liberty ships America would build during the war, each requiring 250,000 precision parts manufactured across 32 states, then assembled by workers who'd learned shipbuilding from scratch in 1941. Lieutenant Colonel Wilhelm von Steuben, whose Prussian family had served German nobility for centuries, stared at the radar antenna rotating above the bridge. This technology, which Germans believed only they possessed, was standard equipment on a cargo ship. "It was then," he later wrote, "I first suspected Germany had already lost the war." But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared them for what came next. August 2nd, 1943. Norfolk Naval Base, Virginia. As the ship approached the American coast, German prisoners pressed against portholes expecting to see a nation in crisis. Instead, they witnessed an industrial colossus that defied comprehension. Norfolk's docks stretched for miles. Dozens of massive ships loaded and unloaded simultaneously. In a single day, this one port handled more tonnage than Hamburg, Germany's largest port, managed in an entire week. Gefreiter Johann Weber, a factory worker before conscription, counted 47 cargo vessels in various stages of operation. Each crane lifted loads that would require dozens of men and horses in Germany. They moved with smooth electric power. No coal smoke, no struggling workers, just effortless mechanical precision. Then came the march to the trains. Along the route, prisoners saw something that broke their minds. Parking lots filled with hundreds of civilian automobiles. Ordinary dock workers drove to their jobs in private cars. In Germany, car ownership remained a privilege of party elites. The promised people's car, the Volkswagen, was still just propaganda. Fewer than 1,000 had ever been delivered to civilians. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The trains waiting for prisoners weren't cattle cars or freight wagons. They were deluxe Pullman passenger coaches, padded seats that converted to sleeping berths, dining cars with white tablecloths and silver cutlery, observation cars with panoramic windows. Hauptmann Friedrich Radke wrote, "We boarded like tourists, not prisoners." The American guard seemed embarrassed that the air conditioning wasn't working properly in our car. Air conditioning? We thought such luxury existed only in Hitler's personal train. The 3-day journey to Texas camps would prove more destructive to Nazi ideology than any military defeat. As trains rolled through Virginia, prisoners witnessed an America that couldn't exist according to everything they'd been taught. Every small town blazed with electric lights. Martinsville, Danville, Greensboro, communities that in Germany would be lucky to have a single street lamp displayed illuminated shop windows, electric signs, houses with lights burning in multiple rooms. Simultaneously, the trains passed factories running night shifts at full capacity. Parking lots remained full even at midnight. Workers drove home in their own vehicles after shifts that would have been impossible without unlimited electricity. Obergefreiter Werner Meyer's father was a Nazi block leader in Hamburg. Werner wrote, "We passed dozens of cities that first night. Each had more electricity than all of Hamburg combined. I called the guard a liar when he said this was normal, that every American town had electricity since the 1920s. He just shrugged and said we'd see for ourselves." Near Louisville, trains slowed passing the Rubber Town complex, 4 massive synthetic rubber plants built in just 18 months. Germany had invented synthetic rubber but never managed more than 120,000 tons annually. These 4 facilities alone produced 800,000 tons. Oberleutnant Erich Hoffmann, an IG Farben chemist, understood immediately. I could see the distillation columns, the catalytic crackers. Each facility was more advanced than anything we'd built. And there were 4 of them in just this location. They told us there were dozens more across the country. But nothing prepared them for Detroit. The trains passed Ford's Willow Run plant, visible from miles away. This single factory, built in 9 months, produced a B-24 Liberator bomber every 63 minutes. 1 bomber every hour. From 1.5 million parts manufactured by 1,500 subcontractors. Hauptmann Verlich, a Luftwaffe pilot shot down over Tunisia, pressed his face against the window, counting 17 B-24s in various stages of completion. We'd been told American planes were inferior, hastily built, would fall apart in combat. But I could see the precision assembly lines, the quality construction. These weren't inferior aircraft. They were simply built faster than we could imagine possible. The deeper into America they traveled, the more complete became their psychological destruction. In Kansas City, trains stopped at stockyards where tens of thousands of cattle waited for slaughter. The smell of meat packing plants filled the air for miles. German prisoners who'd subsisted on 200 grams of meat weekly, when lucky, watched American workers eating beef sandwiches during lunch breaks. "They ate meat like we ate bread," wrote Gefreiter Paul Fischer. "No, that's wrong. They ate meat like we wished we could eat bread." A guard bought hamburgers from a nearby stand, meat, cheese, vegetables on white bread for 15 cents. He bought 20 without thinking, paying with a single dollar bill. This wasn't special occasion food. This was what Americans ate normally. But here's the moment that broke their minds completely. Camp Hearn, Texas. Built in 4 months to house 5,000 prisoners in conditions exceeding what most had known as civilians. Wooden barracks with electric lights, flush toilets, hot showers, and steam heat. Steam. Each building used more lumber than entire German villages possessed. The camp hospital astounded medical personnel among prisoners. Dr. Friedrich Bauer, chief surgeon of the 164th Light Division, found himself in a facility better equipped than most German civilian hospitals. They had penicillin, Dr. Bauer testified after the war. This miracle drug we'd only heard rumors about. They used it freely, even on prisoners with minor infections. German soldiers were dying for want of basic sulfa drugs, and Americans gave us their most advanced medicine without hesitation. The daily rations included fresh milk, eggs, meat, vegetables, and white bread, quantities German civilians hadn't seen since 1939. Feldwebel Otto Krebs, a Munich hotel chef, wrote, "Today we threw away more food than my family has seen in 3 years. Not spoiled food, simply excess. American regulations require 10% extra preparation to ensure full rations. The surplus gets discarded. I wept throwing perfectly good bread into garbage." By winter 1943, American intelligence documented what they called ideological collapse syndrome among prisoners. The most fanatical Nazis had gone silent. They maintained loyalty to Germany, but no longer spoke of victory. Christmas 1943 delivered the killing blow. American churches and civic groups sent 500,000 Christmas packages to German prisoners, enemies who'd been trying to kill American soldiers months earlier. Local communities invited prisoners to Christmas dinners. The Methodist Church in Herne performed German Christmas carols for homesick soldiers. This kindness toward enemies shattered the final remnants of Nazi racial theory. Oberleutnant Walter Müller, whose brother died in Hamburg bombing, wrote, "They know we're their enemies. Many have sons fighting our armies. Yet they show Christian charity, not propaganda but genuine kindness. What kind of people treat enemies this way? Only those absolutely certain of victory and secure in their power." The transformation was so complete that by 1945 over 25,000 prisoners volunteered for democracy courses. Camp newspapers published articles about constitutional government and civil rights. Officers who'd sworn oaths to Hitler were planning how to implement American agricultural methods in post-war Germany. "We became missionaries for democracy," admitted Oberst Hermann Göring, no relation to the Reich Marshal, in a 1975 interview. "Not through coercion or propaganda, but through observation. We saw it work. We wanted that for Germany." When these 371,683 prisoners returned to Germany between 1945 and 1946, they brought something more valuable than military intelligence. They brought proof that democracy worked. Many rose to prominence in West Germany's reconstruction. They became ambassadors, commissioners, and political leaders. The economic miracle of the 1950s was built partly on knowledge gained in American prison camps. America won the ultimate victory, not through destruction, but through demonstration. Not through hatred, but through abundance so overwhelming it converted enemies into allies. The German prisoners arrived believing in Nazi superiority and American weakness. They left knowing the truth. America's secret weapon wasn't just industrial might, but the capacity to transform enemies into friends through the simple power of example. In the end, that was how democracy defeated fascism, one converted mind at a time. Want to discover more shocking untold stories from WWII? Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because history's most incredible truths are often its best kept secrets.